Hey, Rob, and you're Andrew Bauman.
Hey, Rob.
Andrew Bauman.
How are you?
Good.
Cool. Well, hey, happy morning recording to you.
It's not as early as we think.
You're right.
Okay.
It's almost beer time.
We just got back from Washington, D.C. I have gone for about 9 of the 10 years that I know that it's kind of been a thing with the Brewers Association.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier.
There is an event every year in Washington, D.C. that, Rob, you've been part of for several times, like most of the time that the BA has done this. It's the Hill Climb, where we as guilds or breweries go and tell our stories to our legislators and introduce them to the important legislative agendas of the day or of the year.
Sure. Yeah. I've been doing this for about 10 years. I know the first couple trips were either 10 or 11 years ago. I guess I'd been doing it for 9. The first order of business was to try to pass the KBMTRA, the Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Reform Act. That was the act of Congress that cut our federal excise taxes for all of our breweries by 50%, from $7 a barrel to $3.50, and that has been a windfall for our smaller breweries to reinvest back into their businesses, and our larger breweries to also do the same. But at that scale, it's literally hiring a full-time professional person or more, or buying a tank. So that took 10 years. And when I tell people that we're going every year to DC, people give me a funny look and they say, "Oh, how awful for you." And it can be awful in terms of the weather sometimes. It can be warm and humid. It depends on when we go. If we go early in the spring, it's beautiful. We're there for cherry blossom season. So this year we went during the session, at the end of the session, the very, very end of the session. And it was hot and muggy. But
it was definitely the end of the session.
But I'm. It's not terrible. It's very inspirational, and I'm going to leave that part of the story up to you because you didn't necessarily believe me, or maybe you took it on faith. But it was. But the timing of this event is across several days, and it culminates with an event called Savor, and so that's why there are lots of brewery people in DC at the same time. But as an Arizonan, we have to get on, if we're going to hit a direct flight, it's 8 a.m, and then you fly all day, and it's 4 o'clock when you land, and we have a 5 o'clock reception. So,
and there is only one direct flight from Phoenix to DC a day.
Yeah, right now, especially.
Yeah.
If you have to go through Chicago or Dallas, it can suck. Sometimes they route you all the way to North Carolina. I guess that's not too bad. Or Denver. Nevertheless,
I came back through Orlando.
That's the nature of the points that we have to use to get these flights sometimes. But tell me about Thursday. We land. We're hustling. Where are we going?
Well, I'll start on Tuesday because that's the day we got there. How's that? Even better. So we get there. We leave at 8. We get there about 4:20. I checked a bag. It's the last time I'll check a bag. Okay? We can make that commitment. It is a huge time suck in the beginning. To get on the plane, you have to get in this long line to check your bag. And then at the end, you have to wait for it to come out. So, thank you for your patience. We get an Uber, another fun adventure. Getting an Uber at an airport where there's hundreds of people crammed on one place looking for their Uber. That's exciting.
Yes. Can I just, if you're listening and you travel, when you're waiting at the cab stand or the Uber or the rideshare, just be aware that you're totally they give you this little lane between the curb and a bus stop or some other pillar. Can just be aware of your surroundings and move the hell out of the way. So like
put all your bags
and everybody's cramped in this one spot and it goes like forever. It goes like a several blocks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just by the way. Anyway, please continue.
Then we go to our Airbnb. We set our bags in, and it's time to go. We flew already dressed for the event, thinking if
business
we're
casual
a little late,
yeah,
we might have to go directly to the event, which would have been fine as well.
Oh, our Uber guy dropped us off 7 minutes away from where we were supposed to be, and we were just
I think it's that building.
It's like, no, bro.
We look at our maps, we're like, that's not the building. He said, yeah, that's the building. We're like, no, it's not. He said, okay, thanks, and it end ride. It just kicked us out.
Yeah.
So,
I get the worst Uber experience in DC.
He was very lost in his own city, which I feel for his frustration, but just dump someone out.
Yeah, well, that's what you have. You have diagonals laid across a grid.
Yeah.
It makes it very tough sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, where are we going after the Airbnb? We're going to
what's the name?
McDermott, Will, and Emery.
Okay, I was just to say McDermott and Emery, but I was wrong. There's a Will in
There's
there.
a Will,
I
yeah.
don't want to forget that guy. No. Okay, so at that event, there are many of the people involved with the hill climb from the Brewers Association, from guild leaders, and also breweries. We had a couple of legislators there as well. And
yes, we had
it's on the rooftop.
Senator DeFazio of Oregon, who has been at this for all of the 9 years I've been. He is the head of the Small Brewers Caucus. It is the largest bicameral, which means both House and Senate, and bipartisan, which means Republicans and Democrats. It is the largest caucus in Congress. And they talk about our issues. And, it's more on the regulatory side. There are tons of regulations that they help with. And we have that on the state level, but I'm off on a tangent again. But that's who he is. He's very important.
Yeah. And it was an opportunity to see some people we haven't seen since Craft Brewers Conference, other than on our Zoom meetings that we have. Touch base with our friends at the Brewers Association and just kind of get there and get reacquainted. And where are you going? Okay, where are we going tomorrow? We'll meet there. And
right, but we're on the rooftop.
Right in front, right on Capitol Ave.
I think it's New Jersey, but maybe not. I don't know. It's on one of the diagonals, and I guess the point of it is you can see the Capitol.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Bonnie, our wives were with us. Bonnie, your wife was with us. Brenda, my wife, was with us. That was the first time I've been able to do that. And I wanted to get Andrew as the deputy director. I wanted to do it only happens once a year, so I wanted you to get the full experience. And I'm so happy Bonnie and Brenda could come. But I mentioned this because we took a picture and Bonnie kind of like tweaked the Capitol Rotunda in the photo.
She had to come directly from the airport to the event because her plane landed later.
Right.
Again, those points. Using some leftover money.
She used her points.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah. Using her points, she had to fly a different airline, and she had a layover in Chicago. So she left before us and got in an hour later.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So there are because of this event, there are beers from all over the country. Did you remember having anything in particular that stood out as a beer? Like you're like, oh, this is really cool.
At that event?
Yes.
No.
There was Maine Lunch, Maine Brewing Company. That's the only time I get to have Maine Beer Co. is that weekend. I started off with an Allagash, and it's kind of funny because there's that whole Allagash bronze medal controversy, which we'll probably won't get into right now. But
I said, are you ordering that in sympathy?
Well, sometimes, a lot of times, Rob Todd is there. He wasn't here this year.
Mm.
He was the president of the board of the Brewers Association. Right now, it's Garrett Guerrero.
He was there.
Garrett was there.
Man, he's such a great dude.
He was, and he was very forthright about his experience as the stalking horse bidder. That's the first time that word has ever come out of
I didn't know that was the thing.
The stalking horse bidder for modern times. The stalking horse bidder is in a bankruptcy auction situation. It is somebody who gets to ask all the questions, and they're the first one to make a bid. And the people who are selling at auction work with an individual to sort of get through all the vetting of a lot of different questions. They did not prevail. I think the price came in much higher. It's reported that the price was much higher than Maui wanted to go.
Their original bid was $7.5 million, and they were willing to go up to 15, and it went up to over 20.
Right
over 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once it hit 15, they said, "Yeah, not worth it to us. We're out."
Yeah. So it, like to be somewhere when things are happening. I think that's
and that was happening like that week.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
cool.
That's the experience you get. But I wanted to run into Rob Todd, but
we also saw Mr. Michael Marquez from Mother Road Brewing Company in Flagstaff.
We did. This would be, I think, his third trip in the 9 that I've done.
He was so patient with you. I just want you to know that. He wanted to say things and he just kept talking, and he was very patient.
Well, we have to understand what that means. This is his third. I was with him on his first, and he had the opportunity to have beer at this event at Savor, and also there's a reception that we do after the hill climb. And that first year, his beer didn't make 2 of the 3.
Oh, right, because of logistics issues.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So the second time he got all 3. The nature of that reception, we'll get into that a little bit, was different. It was more in a cafeteria, but we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, so he's been involved a lot of years. If we're getting into this, Ken Wilson has also been about as many trips, and he really, really wanted to make this trip, but it just didn't work out. I mean, I think a lot of things just don't work out this year because of what's going on. But so I enjoyed that beer. I enjoyed talking to Sean Sullivan, who is the main director. It's just good to talk to him face to face. And we also we reconnected with Joseph Cortez from Georgia.
Mary from
Ohio. Carolyn, who's the new executive director of Texas.
Yeah. Bonnie is going to go spend a weekend in Austin with Carolyn. We had so much fun with her. She's like, I think I might just take a trip to Austin and hang out with her. Great, go.
Man, I can't tell you how many times I said that about Charles, the previous director, and it just never happened. So I hope that happens for her, because it's, what is that whole thing if you have adult friends after 30? Like, hey man, it's August. Hey, let's get together in like January. Okay, like we're gonna make that happen. Oh, the holidays, So wow, that was a lot for Thursday. We did we go out? We did not go.
That was Tuesday. Still Tuesday.
I'm thinking like a 3-day weekend, but you're right. It has been, yeah.
So that night,
you guys went back.
We went back to the room and just went to sleep.
It was late.
Yeah.
But didn't you guys go back to get some coffee?
That was the day. Yeah. We went back. Bonnie and I went back to the Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Keurig sitting there, and I didn't want to wake up and not have coffee. That was a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm. We all went to Right Proper. And some people went to...
and then we went to Right Proper, and then you went to...
Oh, I stayed out late.
You stayed out late. The 3 of us went back.
Right. And then you went and got coffee.
We went on a trip walking through some parts of Washington, D.C. at 11 o'clock at night, which I tend to do that. I just don't even care, and I do. And then I'm like, ooh, this was probably not the smartest thing.
A very popular thing to do in DC is do the Monument Walk at night. I did not get to do that this year, but this was not the Monument Walk. This was a monumental walk, but it was not the Monument Walk.
This was walking to a grocery store. That was pretty far away. Well, first we stopped at a few bodegas, you would call them, but in DC, they're all sealed in with plexiglass. There's a few things, like a few chips, but everything else is a sealed counter all the way around with a little hole they open to take your money. Wow, so different from our normal experience or any other experience I've had on a trip. I've been to New York City several times. I've been to places, but I've never seen that. So that's the neighborhood we were in. That's fine.
We don't want to talk about the rat punting?
Oh, yeah. Well, as we were walking, a rat ran right across my wife's foot. We were just walking on the sidewalk, and a rat runs across the sidewalk right over her foot and into some bushes. That was exciting. And she was wearing flip-flops. So
yeah. So
she's
we had
not a fan of critters or anything.
We had an early morning. We had to get to the hotel. We did not stay in the hotel.
So tell me about how the coffee worked out.
Oh.
We walked through this whole adventure just to get...
The coffee machine did not
operate at all.
So yeah. We're actually drinking the Keurig cups from
Very
DC.
Nice. We brought that there and brought it all the way back to Arizona. It's imported from Washington.
Right.
DC.
Is this the Whole Foods brand or?
It was Kroger brand.
Kroger brand. Okay. I can taste the salt air of the swamps of DC.
Yeah.
So the next morning we had to get up. There's a briefing, and this time it's everybody who's on the hill climbing.
The next day was Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you.
So Rob and I had to wear suits like very fancy people do.
We'll have photos.
Yeah.
If you are listening to the pod and you want to see some of the photos we have and things like that, we do have a YouTube channel, and we do put in things and little Easter eggs in the video.
In the videos that are fun.
Yeah. So.
So we got up early. The ladies were having an adventure of their own that day, so we left and went to breakfast.
Right. At the hotel during
at the conference hotel.
Introductory, give our marching orders, our talking points. And we should mention at the front end, the goals of this were to reestablish our relationship. I think after you win a bill, you go in and you start fortifying for possibly playing defense on some issues. And if you don't have a full agenda, you just want to tell your stories, and so that if there is something that comes up, you have the right people to contact, and it's just seamless, because they would prefer you come in with a full slate of agenda, but that's not how reality or life works.
So this win that Rob is talking about is the Kaboomtra Craft Beverage Modernization
Tax Reform Act. Yes, it was implemented.
Got it finally after 10 years of trying to get it passed. It was a couple times they temporarily extended it, but last year it got fully signed in. Boom, that's the way it is now.
Exactly.
So this is the win that we're going to thank our representatives for helping get over the goal line.
Right. It might have been 2 years ago, because last year we had to do the online Zoom
virtual
things, and it's just not the same.
Right.
Nevertheless, we have one issue. It is to use the U.S. Postal Service for direct consumer delivery.
Allow the U.S. Postal Service, not use them.
Well, yes.
Allow them to carry alcoholic beverages as the most built-out delivery system in the country, which is intended from the beginning to serve residents.
All customers.
As opposed to
No matter where you are.
No matter where you are in the country, the USPS is there for you.
Right. As opposed to UPS or FedEx, which is B2B, business to business, not necessarily designed around the consumer. And their rates reflect that sometimes. So this law would allow competition from the Postal Service, and this is a very important point, where state law allows. It does not preempt state law. I know that's a very popular thing for everyone to be aware of, state versus federal. Not to get too dogmatic, there are many nuances to state and federal issues, and this could be one of them. So that is the push. It is something that we feel is important in Arizona.
It makes sense to just about everyone you talk to. So why do we even have to talk about it with our representatives, Rob?
Well,
who wouldn't want that?
A bunch of our alcohol policy and laws is a carve out. It doesn't necessarily translate one-to-one to all of our other laws because of our experience as a nation with prohibition. It's a lot of people say it's because of the 3-tier or it's because of prohibition. It's not necessarily due to prohibition. And the 3-tier system is not a law. It's a legislative strategy to have suppliers who make alcoholic products.
It's a regulatory strategy?
Mm-hmm. It's not a law.
Right.
It's a regulatory strategy.
You said legislative, and so that's how I was like...
Well, I mean, it's a legislative strategy too. It is, you build policy around the concept that there are people who make alcoholic products, brewers, vintners, distillers. You have people who sell, retailers, those products, and then you have a wholesaler that moves products between those two. And traditionally, as breweries were and alcohol companies were very large, a wholesaler could not sell to the public or a producer supplier could not wholesale or sell directly to the consumer, and retailers couldn't wholesale or produce. They kept their lanes together.
One or the other, not
right.
Two.
Because of, again, a uniquely American experience, having in the beer world, having in my lifetime, maybe 15 to 20 breweries at one point, from a pre-prohibition number of like 2,000 or 3,000. They wanted to encourage the production of beer on a small scale, so they allowed breweries to do some wholesaling and do some direct-to-consumer.
They're producers with limited distribution and retail
rights.
Right,
and it's state by state, but I at this point, everyone agrees that is a thing that is an exception to the 3-tier legislative, legal, regulatory strategy. There is no one law that says we have the 3-tier or we don't have the 3-tier. So
rather, what it says is here is what you can do,
right,
and then beyond that, you have to do this other thing. I mean, that's how it reads in Arizona law.
Yeah. You can have federal laws, and those are the laws that apply unless there is a specific state law. And there are a lot of specific state laws. This is why there are guilds in every state. So given all that, people who have been in this industry for a long time, those laws now, whether the intention was met or not, they have built their strategy, their business around the prevailing laws. Mm-hmm. And so in a lot of cases, there is resistance because any change to status quo is a threat to their business. I mean, or perceptually, right?
Colorado. Hello, that place blew up.
Yeah. But if you were a traditional distributor who distributed the very large breweries, it was a threat. If they didn't change what they did, they would be left behind. Nobody wanted to do that initially, but I think in some cases it has turned out to be the prevailing and most profitable part of their business, but not all. So the people who resist this are people who want to not have anything change. And some retailers don't like this because they feel like everybody should get their butts down to their store and buy directly from them. Right. It doesn't matter.
Retailers don't want the USPS to be able to deliver alcohol.
Right. And some wholesalers don't like this because they feel like they're missing out on their opportunity to deliver.
Right.
And I'll tell you, some breweries don't like this either because they are also retailers. They are also selling beer, and they don't want to necessarily have to compete against people who can package beer efficiently and send it off. I mean, it's a small, for sure. Because especially in a state like us where it doesn't make sense to deliver beer in certain parts of the year here in Phoenix. Let me put it short. There are some breweries who would not enjoy necessarily having an out-of-state product arrive here. That's clear. We already have their products on the shelves. But to be clear, this is a very small amount of beer in this.
Very small amount of beer.
Sure.
We're talking about.
But I don't think everyone has that perspective.
Okay.
Right. And to be honest, we don't have the full story. We all need to get in a room and talk it out and decide it. Nevertheless, I think having the USPS, a player in that segment, we'll see how far it grows. But as I mentioned, if you're expecting to build a model out of using the post office to deliver beer in July in Phoenix, you're going to get a lot of returns. You're going to lose money on product. Satisfaction. It's still not going to stop Uncle Phil from sending beer to you because he thinks that's the right thing to do. And he doesn't have any concept that 110 degrees during the day means 140, 150 in a truck, probably overnight. Nevertheless, I think it's something that I think we need to give our businesses the options. And I don't think it takes a big bite out of either retailers or wholesalers. But I understand why they see it as a threat. It's our job to come to a negotiation and come to some sort of agreement about what makes sense for Arizona as a state.
Right.
So that's the big issue that we're fighting. And we're already 30 minutes into this podcast. I think we might have to do a part 2.
Oh, great. Wait, okay, so now it's Wednesday and we're meeting with our representatives.
It is, yes. So we have a slate of people that we need to meet. We sort of leave that up to the Brewers Association. They arrange our appointments. They try to get as many in person as possible. We had mostly in person. We had one virtual, but we skipped over a fact. I actually met with one of our senators on the plane.
2.
Well, I only talked to one of them, and we were able to arrange a Capitol tour. But most of these, I would have preferred to have met with Kelly because I have not had a face-to-face with him. I've had several with Senator Sinema, but nevertheless, we have a relationship with a lot of these. Over 10 years, we have a relationship with a lot of these representatives. It's not always, on every trip, we don't always meet with the representative or the senator. This time we had meetings with 2. I don't remember the order, but we did meet with Representative Stanton, who, if you're in Tempe or the East Valley, he was the former mayor of Phoenix. I think he's LD9. So the East Valley. He represents he's the representative that has most of the breweries. Actually, we met with 3 representatives. Anyway, Stanton, right. We met Stanton. We met with Representative O'Halloran.
Yeah.
That's 2. And then I met Sinema.
Oh, well, yeah, you were sitting on the plane. You didn't exactly have a legislative meeting with her.
No, but we did solidify some relationships. Some relationships. Her legislative assistant, who travels with her, we had connected. Might have been for the first time in person. It might have been just a virtual thing. Nevertheless, Representative O'Halloran, who represents Northern Arizona, and then it's sort of a sweeping motion all the way down to Marana, and he represents both in volume and number the second most breweries in Arizona. His district.
However, the redistricting may have increased the number of breweries since he picked up Prescott.
Yeah, but this is June 30th, and that doesn't go into effect till tomorrow. So I have to redo all my maps, and I have to redo all my grid with who's in what, and that's at the federal level and the state level.
Yeah.
And there are 30 districts in Arizona, and there are 9 federal districts. So that'll be my 4th of July. That'll be my patriotic Dewey.
What a glorious weekend!
Put together, yeah. So we met with him, and we met him where?
That was super cool. Well, it's the end of the legislative session. They are doing votes. Like, this is not playtime at the Capitol. They are very, very busy. Plus, the January 6th hearings are going on, and people are involved in that, and like, it was lots of action. So he was between two votes. He said, look, I can't come back to the office, but why don't you come down to the Capitol and meet me? So his staff brought us into the Capitol, and we went into this room, the Reynolds room.
Yeah.
I think. Maybe Randall.
I don't know, but we had to go, if you've been to DC, we had to go from their office building, and there are I don't know, a half dozen on the representative side and like 3 on the Senate side, maybe more, but they're all connected by tunnels. So we had to go into the tunnel, and this time we just got to take the tunnels through.
Go through the tunnels,
and we just kind of pop up.
Even that is like pretty incredible. It's not like you're just walking through a blank tunnel.
Yeah,
you walk into an area where several tunnels meet, and it's this grand, like, giant hall with all these paintings and historical. And
they're delivering like reams of paper 24/7.
They just delivered paper. They use so much paper, it's insane. Pallets a day of paper.
Yeah.
So he comes out, says hi, and brings us back to this glorious meeting room.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up, and we'll have pictures on the video. Again, if you are just listening, we do have a YouTube channel, and we do post some of these pictures and little Easter eggs. There's a photo. There's a portrait. I shouldn't say a photo. Well, there's no photo of George Washington. There is a portrait, a painted portrait, and it's got to be like 10 feet, 12 feet tall. I mean, it's gigantic.
And during these meetings, Michael Marquez and Megan were with us for all these meetings too. And he's in Representative O'Halloran's district. So they're very well acquainted with each other.
They are. He's used it as a campaign stop, Mother Road. And he's familiar with their Conserve and Protect. He's familiar with Sinagua Malt, which is also in his district. He is in touch with a lot of issues. And I've met him on the campaign trail too. And he is, pretty down-to-earth person, practical person for sure. I didn't feel like I was getting, a lot of rehearsed speeches or anything like that. It was a very genuine conversation, and but with the backdrop of being in one of these little ante rooms. Where these kinds of conversations are happening, you look around.
Those things going on, people passing through with big boxes of paper.
Yeah. So that was great. It was great to see them interact, Michael and Representative O'Halloran.
And he also said he doesn't drink a lot of beer, but he does enjoy drinking beer from breweries
because of because of his reaching out to breweries and vice versa. He said he had his first beer in a long time and really enjoyed it. I mean, he didn't have to say it like that. He could have just said, "I love beer," so it was, it seemed authentic and truthful. But he does drive a lot for his district. I mean, a lot of miles. So I can understand that. We also met with Representative Stanton in his office, and I've known Representative Stanton when he was mayor. For the first 3 times I went there, I kept calling him Mayor Stanton. He's like, "That's okay." I'm like, "You're always my mayor, man." So it was great that we saw those folks, even just on the plane, just seeing Senator Kelly, walking through DC. Sometimes I don't see a single member of Congress, and sometimes we see a lot. We saw a lot this time around.
Because there were a lot of votes going on, and they had to be in town, is my guess.
There was.
Yeah.
So we also met with Representative Schweikert's office, had great conversation. I had a Zoom call with Sinema's office, which went pretty well. We had to reschedule that, but that office is committed to actually visiting breweries, and Senator Sinema is the sole member on our visit of the Small Brewers Caucus, which we talked a little bit about. So our job now is to follow up with thank yous probably after July 4th at this point, and make sure that they're involved with that. Just to give everyone, we talked about it at the front end of the show, or if this is in part two, the Small Brewers Caucus is the largest bicameral, meaning both House and Senate, and bipartisan, meaning Republican and Democrat caucus. And one of the things that Senator DeFazio talked about on Tuesday night,
good.
on the rooftop of McDermott, Will, and Emery, is the importance of that caucus. There was a point a couple years ago where they wanted breweries to take their wet spent grain and have it produced, processed for human consumption,
and package it and test it so that that's not quite accurate, not human consumption, but it had to be traceable. They wanted to have all of your spent grain traceable if you were sending it to a feedlot. So if anything went wrong, they could trace back to where that feed came from. And that is untenable as a structure for breweries and farmers.
They're regulating, again, for people who aren't familiar, when you brew, the spent grain is the husk of the malt, right? I mean,
once you've converted those starches into sugars and taken all those sugars out, what's left is fiber with some sugar,
some sugars, and it's collected and it is put out. You'll smell it in the back of breweries. Sometimes it's not necessarily anyone's favorite smell, but it does ferment in a way that is enjoyable for livestock. I mean, they go nuts for it.
It does. It takes about 18 hours, and it is starting to ferment out there, and you know it. And it is.
It's lactic, right?
It's
lactic. It's like a lactic souring, or
whatever's in the air souring.
But it's wet feed. It's still generally wet when it's delivered, so it is hydrating. It's not the most nutritious, but it can be an adjunct to whatever they do. It's important. So this would be the United States government regulating something that has been happening for 10,000 years.
Yeah. Yes. And then saying, that's not okay. Not because there was a problem, just because
there really hasn't been a problem.
No.
I understand why someone would, for the first time. I think a lot of people who take beer tours go like, "What? That's that?" And an animal's going to eat it, and they just don't understand how this works. I can understand an initial issue, but the Small Brewers Caucus are instrumental in helping us. So imagine the law is already written. The
regulation,
the federal. The law is written, and they are going to write the regulations. They propose these kinds of things.
Okay, yeah.
And we go, wow, wait a minute. And we put a few calls in. There's a lot of, there was a long negotiation. There was a lot of letter writing. There was a lot of document reading. And ultimately, the status quo for our industry prevailed, because I think that would have been something that might have caused a few businesses to say, you know what, not go out of business, just say, you know what, this is too much, and I'm going to sell the brewery, or I'm going to figure out how to get out of this industry. I'm going to convert to a craft beer bar, especially at the small scale.
So the spent grain, if a farmer does not pick it up, you have to pay to put that in a trash can. Mm-hmm. If you put it in a trash can, someone has to take it away, and if someone takes it away, you have to pay them. So essentially, all that spent grain would end up, and I'm telling you, like, there are probably 10% of breweries in this country who would be able to conform to that new regulation. So the other 90%, all that spent grain is going to a landfill, and it's costing money to haul away. Mm-hmm. And that is really bad news. And the farmers have to now buy feed that they otherwise get from breweries.
From my understanding, it does not convert in a landfill as quickly as you might imagine, because it's fibrous. Mm-hmm. It's not like, a lot of your wet vegetable waste, which does immediately convert. Right. It retards the landfill a little bit. Mm-hmm. They have to manage it. Mm-hmm. They can't just Otherwise, you'll get these pockets of spent grain that just.
And then there's air in there, and then it becomes all kinds of mess.
We really got into this topic.
Well, it's important. So, the Small Brewers Caucus helped to educate the FDA and convince them that this was a safe thing for animals. And they changed the ruling or the regulation to eliminate that from the eventual.
Yeah.
What was the name of that act?
It started with an F. The Food Modernization Act.
FASMA.
Food
Safety Modernization Act.
Yeah.
FASMA. Yeah.
Got to know our acronyms.
Yeah.
So we get done with all these things in the afternoon, and we have a reception. And in the past, this reception was done in a basement cafeteria. I think of the Russell office building. Like it might have been in the sub basement because a lot of these buildings have 2 basements, and it's tight, it's small, and I'm going to tell you, it was great because everybody's really super enthusiastic. But it predominantly was legislative aides and assistants. And we should say, by the way, that those people in their 20s are some of the smartest, enthusiastic people that you'll ever meet. And that is why, what do you come away with when you have these meetings with these folks? What is your experience? Was I correct on that?
I thought it was really cool. They are excited to be there. They not only are excited to be there, but they feel like it's an important job, which is really cool. That they take seriously, and no one was there like glib or flippant. We had one of the new interns, and interns are there for about 6 weeks. And she was about a week in, and she was so excited. She would not shut up. It was so awesome to see. Mm-hmm. And
she could be a representative or a senator or a primary legislative coordinator, or just basically a policy director. Mm-hmm. Like at some point, you
not
just don't know.
Not too far down the road, because this country is run by 22 to 28 year olds. That's the end of the sentence. That's who runs this country through those representative and senators' offices. They're the ones that get this stuff done. And they're the ones who the senators go to and say, hey, tell me about what this subject is. And then they have to, in a couple of hours, learn all about it and brief them on what's going on.
They're the note takers. They are the organizers. And they take all of our issues seriously. Mm-hmm. And we're an easy meeting for them to take because they enjoy what we have to say.
We're not super
controversial. Yeah, but we did learn something about congressional pages, which I didn't know. Being
this is a pretty rough one. I need a beer for this.
Okay, we're not gonna pause.
We're not gonna pause. So yeah, it doesn't have a date on it, so it must be good. Make sure to cut that. And also,
gonna remember to mark